Halo Infinite has launched with 11 maps, and a lot of people would say the game feels a little bit light on maps. Now, if you go back through the history of Halo, 11 maps isn't necessarily super low compared to some of those older Halo titles in terms of launch maps. But I think part of the reason that a lot of people say Halo Infinite is light on maps is kind of threefold. One, the maps in Halo Infinite aren't necessarily as memorable as some of the top tier maps from previous Halo games that those games launched with that made the map pool feel more rich, along with the fact that these maps are kind of locked into their own playlist. You have a map like Launch Site that you're only going to play in social. Then you have the other arena maps where you're going to play in both ranked and social, except for the fact that Behemoth is kind of a totally different map in ranked. And then you have the 3 BTB maps that you're obviously only going to play in BTB. So if you're mostly playing Big Team Battle, which has been broken for a while, you're only going to see 3 maps, or if you're playing ranked, you're only going to see 6 maps. And so this can make the map pool feel a little bit lighter than it actually is, when in reality, 11 maps isn't necessarily terrible. Just for reference, Halo 3 shipped with 11 maps, Combat Evolved shipped with 13, and Halo 2 shipped with 12. Now, Halo 3 did have Forge, which kind of allowed people to make their own maps a little bit, but not necessarily at launch, as the true potential of Forge wasn't really realized until Foundry and later on Sandbox came out. So those games didn't necessarily have a ton more maps than Halo Infinite does, but you could easily make the argument that original trilogy had maps that were a little bit more memorable. But without further ado, enough talking about why people might have some opinions on Halo Infinite maps. Let's put all of these maps onto their rightful place in a Halo Infinite map tier list. Before we get into the video though today, let me talk to you about today's video sponsor, Manscaped. If you guys have been on YouTube for a while, Manscaped is obviously a company you've seen a ton of, and they have some really cool products. Recently, they just launched their Lawnmower 4.0, and everyone always needs the newest and greatest products. You can join over 4 million different men worldwide who trust Manscaped, and today with their support for this video, you can get 20% off and free shipping with code RASH at manscaped.com. The Manscaped trimmers are completely waterproof, and the Lawnmower 4.0 is also going to help reduce nicks, which obviously you don't want, reduce the risk of ingrown hairs, and also reduce the risk of any of those pesky grooming accidents. You also get all sorts of other ton features, like a nice LED spotlight that you can turn on and off when you need to see exactly what you're doing, along with different guard lengths from size 1 to 4, and wireless charging, which is obviously something that everyone needs. So go over to Manscaped today, get 20% off and free shipping with code RASH at manscaped.com. Like I said, 20% off, free shipping. I mean, why aren't you already on the website ordering some now? We're going to start with one of the very solid Halo Infinite maps, and that is Aquarius. Now, I'm going to put Aquarius in the S tier, but I do want to clarify a few things. One, I am more on the competitive side when it comes to Halo games. I love a good ranked grind, and I love that 4v4 sweaty gameplay style in Halo throughout all of Halo's history, so kind of keep that in mind when I talk about why I like certain maps. Another thing is that this tier list is kind of in isolation for Halo Infinite. While Aquarius probably isn't an S tier map of all of Halo's history, in Halo Infinite, it does stand out to me as an S tier map. Now, why do I like Aquarius specifically? Well, Aquarius, if we're being honest, is just kind of a midship reimagination. Sure, there's a lot more cover, mid is a bit more segued, you have the utility rooms instead of the bubbles, and in general the map just has a lot more cover and is a lot less open, but the overall flow can actually be pretty similar to midship, and hell, lots of competitive players even use the midship callouts when they're playing Aquarius. This is a great 4v4 map in my opinion. It's obviously great for Capture the Flag, which is its best game mode, and it's also not bad for Slayer. It has a decent variety of weapons on it, though similar to midship, it doesn't have a true power weapon like a rocket launcher or a sniper rifle, which I've always enjoyed about midship and now Aquarius, because it kind of gives you a map in the 4v4 competitive pool that doesn't necessarily have a power weapon on it, although obviously you still have something like the heat wave on the map. I also really like how Aquarius has moved the power up to top mid, where if you played something like Truth in Halo 5, which was that game's version of midship, they had the power up on P1. I like it in top mid because it makes it a bit more of a risk reward to try and grab the power up without dying. You really have to have a little bit more control of the game state in order to get that power up. Not only is Aquarius good for 4v4, I also think it's pretty good for 2v2, which obviously we don't have a 2v2 playlist in the game currently, which is kind of a bummer, but I imagine when we eventually get doubles, If we do, I think Aquarius will be a good doubles map, as the size works out for doubles, and I think the engagements will work out, and it's kind of a good map built for that, where you can kind of assist your teammate in a lot of places without necessarily having to be right on top of them. Now, Midship in the past was a very strong free-for-all map, and that is something I'm gonna knock Aquarius for a little bit, though obviously I still have it on the S tier. Halo Infinite does have a free-for-all playlist, but it's only in social, and so I don't play it a ton because I don't really enjoy AR Sidekick free-for-all. But if you play 8-man BR free-for-all on Aquarius, which is the competitive free-for-all settings currently, I'm not a big fan. I do find that the additional cover and the ways you can kind of escape from people while they're shooting on you make the map kind of frustrating, as a lot of your kills are going to get away, whereas if you're playing something like Midship or Heretic, that wouldn't happen nearly as much because the map was a lot more open and you could finish off your kills a little bit easier. Now, the 6-man free-for-all version that you do play in matchmaking with AR and Sidekick, I do actually enjoy a bit more, but like I said, I'm not a big fan of those settings, and so I don't play it a ton. Overall, like I said, Aquarius is a fantastic 4v4 map. It's probably the best balanced and best competitive map in Halo Infinite, and that is why I've ranked it in the S tier. Now, for the next map, we're going to go with something that I think a lot more people are starting to come around to. When we first played Bazaar in the flights, I feel like a lot of people really enjoyed the map. However, as I've gotten to play Bazaar more, it's becoming one of my least favorite Halo Infinite maps, and therefore we're going to be putting it in the D tier. Now, on Bazaar, you can play a variety of game modes. It is a symmetrical map similar to Aquarius, but the main game modes you're going to be playing Bazaar on in Ranked are Slayer and Capture the Flag, and I hate both of those game modes on Bazaar. The map is really awkward, and I don't really like the flow of the map. The middle just feels awkward, and the routes around the map feel awkward, and trying to pull a flag on Bazaar is actually really frustrating, as even if you slay a team, they seem to spawn kind of where you need to pull the flag. They can end up stopping your pull in its tracks, even though they had 2 or 3 down. I do like that Bazaar has a power-up and a power weapon, in Ranked being the overshield and the rocket launcher. That is pretty fun, and the bulldog that you can find on the map can be pretty enjoyable, and I love any map that have the thrust and the grapple on it, as those are a lot of fun. So those are elements of Bazaar that I enjoy, but those are more me just enjoying the sandbox of Halo Infinite, where the actual map of Bazaar I just don't really enjoy. There's been some videos kind of speculating that maybe they planned on opening up that bottom part under the tree area so you could walk straight out from the bottom of tree into mid, and I do wonder if that would help the map flow a little better and help make the middle of the map feel a little bit less awkward. I would be very interested to kind of try that out, and maybe we will see that version of Bazaar someday. With all that said though, Bazaar for me is a definite D tier map. Now next we're going to jump on over, and we're actually going to do Launch Site, and this is the other map that I'm going to put into D tier. Now, Launch Site to me plays like a map where someone was given the assignment to make a map to kind of give the player the feelings of playing Zanzibar back in the day. An asymmetrical map built around asymmetrical objective like one flag, except they did not understand the assignment and they completely missed what made Zanzibar fun. Now, one of the good things about Zanzibar was it was a BTB map. However, Launch Site is currently a 4v4 map that is honestly just way too big for 4v4 gameplay. A lot of time you spend on Bazaar is just kind of running around trying to find enemies, and in all honesty, even when I play one flag on this map, which is probably Launch Site's best game mode, I just don't really enjoy it. Trying to get flag pulls isn't nearly as fun, as Launch Site kind of functions as a big U with a man cannon that connects one side to the other. I don't find that layout nearly as fun as something like Zanzibar, which had a lot more natural map flow and movement to it, whereas Launch Site feels like you're really shoehorned into, no pun intended, the U-shaped horseshoe of the map. You can obviously use the man cannon to get across the map, but if there's anyone on the other side, they're going to kill you, and even if you man cannon across the map to try and grab the flag or something, you still need support from your team, otherwise you're just going to get stuck in the base, and I just don't really enjoy Launch Site, and therefore I'm giving it a D tier. Next up, we're going to hit the BTB maps. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, BTB has been broken for well over a month, and so I haven't got to play nearly as much BTB as I wanted to before doing this video, but I wanted to finally make this video because Halo Infinite's now been out for a while. So we're kind of going to lump all these together, but here's my issue with the BTB maps in Halo Infinite. They're all 2 base maps, and while they are definitely a little bit different, none of them really are unique enough to give me unique gameplay experiences from map to map. Out of the 3 maps, Fragmentation is probably my favorite, and we're going to put that map into the B tier, as I do think it's a pretty fun map, but I have to knock all the BTB maps because unlike previous iterations of BTB, you don't get to drive cool vehicles nearly as much as you did back in the older games. You can get a Wasp on high power, which is a normal spawn, but other than that, you're kind of stuck to the Pelican drop system, which I've just never really got around to liking. So like I said, fragmentation for me is a B, and deadlock and high power really aren't that much different to me in terms of kind of how they play out. Just for whatever reason, I think they're a little bit less fun, and therefore I'm going to put both deadlock and high power into the C tier. Now again, this is with a caveat that I haven't been able to play nearly as much BTB as I wanted to before making this video, but I felt I should include these maps in the tier list just because it would be weird to completely ignore them. Now next we're going to move on to the first map that we played in Halo Infinite, and that was Livefire. So for me, Livefire is a solid C tier map. It's about as safe as you can get when it comes to design of a map. If you would have told me that this was the training area out of a Call of Duty game, I would have completely agreed with that, because that's exactly what it kind of looks like, which I mean makes sense since it is supposed to be the training facility for Halo Infinite. That said, the actual map layout I actually don't think is too bad. It's just very safe, and it's just your kind of standard asymmetrical 3-lane map. You have mid and then you have the 2 different sides, and it really doesn't do anything crazy or fun or special, but it isn't a bad map or anything like that, and that's why I have it in the C tier. Next up we have Streets, which is another 3-lane map for Halo Infinite, because Halo Infinite loves 3-lane maps, and Streets is actually a map that originally I wasn't a huge fan of. However, as I've played on it more and I've been able to put more time into learning the map, it's actually a map that I've grown to enjoy a decent amount. Currently, obviously, Streets is your 4v4 arena map, and on it you're going to play Stronghold, Slayer, and Oddball, and I think it does all those game modes pretty well, with Strongholds or Slayer probably being its best game mode in my opinion. I think the map does a pretty good job of having decent map rotations and decent map flow, and I like having the power weapon of the rocket launcher right in the middle, as it's kind of a heavily contested area of the map, and you can have some pretty intense kind of moments trying to get the rocket launcher out of mid. I also really like Strongholds on this map, as if you're playing with a nice coordinated team, you can really lock down setups, and I find that pretty rewarding to do, and it's something that I really enjoy. You also have the Stalker Rifle on the ranked version of Streets, and that's a weapon I really enjoy doing, and if you use that weapon sitting at the top of C Balk, you can really control almost an entire game, and that's something that is also really rewarding and fun to do. The map isn't perfect though, and sometimes I can find some of the gameplay around the police department section, especially if you're playing Oddball, a little bit awkward, but overall I really enjoy Streets, and I think it's a pretty good map, and that's why I have it in the A tier. Next up we have Recharge, and this is another map that I really enjoy. This is a map that I did originally think was pretty good, and it's kind of a map that I've kept that opinion of as I've played more on it. Recharge in terms of map layout is a little bit more unique, as it is an asymmetrical map, but it's not a 3-lane map like Livefire and Streets. I think the aesthetics of Recharge is probably one of the stronger aesthetics in terms of maps in Halo Infinite, and I also think the map plays pretty well. In ranked you're going to play Slayer, Stronghold, and Oddball similar to Streets, and I think again it does all those game modes pretty well. I really enjoy some of the setups that you can have on Recharge, and the rotations of the map feel pretty natural, and it can be pretty fun to have nice setups with someone sitting in attic while you hold A, or whatever depending on your team setups. And the map also has a sword on it, which is pretty fun to use. I myself am a big fan of the sword, and that whole little area with the circular ramp around the hydro to go down to the sword is pretty cool. Overall, I think Recharge is a pretty cool map. I like having the power up bottom mid, as similar to some other maps, it puts the power up in a nice exposed place, and I like having those there because it kind of forces you to have a little bit more control of the game before you're able to grab that, as if you just run down there you're probably going to get shot from all over the place. And yeah, overall I think Recharge is one of the stronger maps in the game, and it's a map that I definitely enjoy, and therefore I put it in the A tier. And last but not least, we have Behemoth. Now here's the thing, there's kind of two forms of Behemoth. There's ranked Behemoth with no vehicles and BR starts, and there's social Behemoth with vehicles, AR sidekick starts, or there's Fiesta Behemoth, or whatever other game modes you get thrown on Behemoth. Now I will be honest, if I was purely ranking the social version of Behemoth with the vehicles, it would probably be a high C tier map, or maybe even a low B tier map. However, the ranked version of this map has frustrated me so much, and I hate it so much, I have to put this map in the dog water tier. And as you guys know, this is the lowest tier on all my tier lists, and it's where I put things that I absolutely despise, and I absolutely hate Behemoth. And now don't get me wrong, there are some Behemoth apologizers out there, and those people, I question their sanity. For me, the problems with Behemoth ranked are a lot of different things. One, it's the fact that you're playing 5 flag CTF on a map map that it's very difficult to even get one cap on, along with the fact that you're playing BRs on a very open map. It's also a map designed around vehicles and being a little bit larger, so all that together makes the map really unfun and really awkward to play. If you're trying to get flag pulls on Behemoth in ranked, you have to slay entire teams, and then even as you push up, you have to slay them again, and then you have to pull the flag and make a hot run for it, because usually, unless you've perfectly blocked every spawn, they're still going to spawn in the back area of their flag, and while you pull the flag, you're up on that platform, and you get shot by everyone that spawns with BRs, and you get absolutely melted, and it makes pulling flags really difficult. On top of that, the people spawning are usually off in those corners kind of behind the rocks, and they can kind of play behind those rocks a little bit, whereas you trying to pull the flag or in the base are a lot more exposed, and therefore a lot of flag pulls end up getting completely stalled, and it's just not very fun. I find the map very frustrating, very unenjoyable, and without a doubt, when I get Behemoth in ranked, I get more people quitting those games than any other map in the game. Basically, every single game you play on goes to time, and that is also a problem with Bazaar CTF, but it's even worse for Behemoth. There's actually a thread on Twitter a few weeks back from one of the 343 employees asking what they could do to kind of salvage Behemoth for ranked, and I think the problem is it has so many flaws as a ranked map. It really should just be cut from ranked and be a purely social map, and like I said earlier, I would rank it a little bit higher, but the fact that it's in ranked and I get it so often and I hate it so much has it strongly in the dog water tier, and I don't even question this placement at all. Anyways guys, that's going to do it for my map tier list of all the maps. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what maps you would rank differently, or which one of my rankings you hate the absolute most. Again, a huge shout out to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Make sure you guys go check them out, and you can also follow me over on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all the good places. I stream on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so make sure you come catch my streams. And with that said, I'll see you all next time.